Welcome back at Fast Forward Security 2024, the part 2 of today. And we're going to talk about cyber resilience, artificial intelligence, and if we've got some time left, we're going to talk about post-quantum crypto, but I'm not sure we're going to that because, well, if you talk about cyber resilience, let's make it more structured today, and we're going to use this cybersecurity framework. We start with identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Because cyber resilience, you can talk about so many topics, especially with my 3 guests here. First here on my right is Kirsty Paine. You're the field CTO and strategic advisor at Splunk for the EMEA region, 2 years now. You're also a fellow at the World Economic Forum, the Center for Cybersecurity. You do 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay. You started as a mathematician for the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, working on cryptographic technologies, machine learning, big data, and post-quantum security. You also chaired the group of the Internet Engineering Task Force. You even written an RFC, a request for comments, and that's not just a paper, but it's actually changing something on the internet, so it keeps on working. Awesome. And you also used to work at the European Technology Institute at sea. You live in Geneva, so welcome here in Haarlem.
Thank you so much.
Space.
Thank you for the
Splunk is a year ago acquired by Cisco, logically because you already share a lot of customers, of course. I think most people perceive Splunk as a SIEM, Security Incident Event Management System, but it's a bit more than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a branding that we recognize, but we do so much more. We're not even just security. We also work a lot with observability. And lots of people traditionally thought Splunk, you just put your logs in, and that's kind of all we do. We do a lot more than that now. We have a lot of automation, a SOAR product baked into our platform. We're really a cross-data platform. So if you give us data, you can use that data, detect incidents wherever they're from. An incident is an incident, IT or security, and you can resolve it, investigate it, and find the problem much quicker. And using, of course, a healthy dose of AI, which I'm sure we'll get to as well, to aid you along in that journey. So a lot of people have pigeonholed us into just doing logs or just a SIEM, but actually we do so much more than that.
Okay. Who is using Splunk? Yeah, almost half the room.
Okay,
Great. Here on my left, Dirk-Jan van Helmond, Director Solutions Engineer at Cloudflare for 2 years now. You've been into system and network engineering now for 20 years. And you also used to work for Cisco as a leader system engineering. Cloudflare provides users a connectivity cloud. So everything between the endpoint and the office is managed in your cloud. It looks a bit like the previous edition we had today. But how does that work to improve security, the connected cloud?
So what you see is a lot of people know Cloudflare from what is visible to them. It's the CDN, web application firewall, the internet protection. It's the logo that you see if you visit the website. But what we actually are is way more than that. We're a company now that exists for 14 years. And the way, not so long ago, we were positioned by the Forresters and the Gartners as the 4th hypercloud next to Google, Azure, and Microsoft. But that's not the place that we are. We are not the place where your data, where your VMs, where your backend ends up. We're the place just in front of that, where your front door. Yep. So everything that leaves your device, leaves your office, leaves your location, just before it hits your application, everything in the middle, that's where we come in, that's what we protect.
Yes, okay. We'll talk about that too. And of course, the role of AI.
Of course. We do AI.
We do it. Everybody does AI. Also, Erik Jan Koedijk. You actually started your career in 1992 as Mr. Internet. You actually had one of the very first web shops in the Netherlands. Awesome. You started to work at Nokia as country manager in the Netherlands and led the EMEA channel marketing in the enterprise security mobility sector. You wrote a book, Reset, about secure collaboration. It also includes interviews with the legendary hacker Kevin Mitnick. He also used to be a friend. Well, unfortunately, he passed away, but hackers know Kevin, of course. Yes, okay. Currently, you're an independent speaker, advisor, and you're helping leaders with digital transformation and making the right decisions during cyber crisis. You've also been a crisis manager. We're also going to talk about that. And you just came back from MIT, where you followed a course on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So how was that? And how does that relate to cyber threats? What kind of cyber threats does AI pose?
Yeah, I did some learnings the last 10 months also at MIT, especially to focus on the implication AI has on the business strategy. And one of my goals was to meet leaders worldwide who are busy with what they call digital transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the times the security mistakes in the head of the strategy of the board starts when they want to use new tools or learn new things. Mm-hmm. And, I see some similarities with the social media, what happened in 2014, but I will come back later on that. What we can learn also with AI and how to integrate AI. Was a very nice...
But are you saying that the big cyber threat is not that the adversaries are using AI, but it's just the clumsy implementation of it, which is the biggest threat?
The clumsy strategy, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And then the implementation is guaranteed a mess.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It will be. Okay, so we're going to start with the first round. Identify threats. Well, Dirk-Jan, your company sees about 23% of all internet traffic because, well, they connect through you. So in your perception, what are the most common cybersecurity threats we need to deal with currently?
Yeah, so we see 3 buckets of threats happening. A lot of risk that we currently see, well, what we've been seeing for a long time already is phishing, where we see targeted attacks on individuals, more and more on IT people and decision makers because they have elevated rights within a company. Mm. They either have access to systems due to their administrative nature, or they have the power to make financial decisions and execute on them. So we see a lot of targeting happening to those groups. Then we see a lot of harvesting of credentials. We see harvesting of inventory on web shops, or just plain old DDoSing. So 2 weeks ago, I was doing a presentation. I had a slide on the back, and we just stopped the biggest DDoS in the world just a week before, which was 3.4 terabit.
Oh.
While I was doing that presentation, we wrote a blog post because the new one was 4.6. And then after the presentation, we wrote another blog post, and now we're at 5.6 terabits per second, which was more than 200 billion packets per second. No individual company can withstand these kind of attacks. Maybe us, Google, Microsoft Azure. These are the 3, 4, 5 networks in the world that can stop these kind of attacks. Everybody else just gets wiped off the internet. So the internet should have been this very democratic and open place, but what you've seen is we've really converged into this pyramid pretty much, where just a few power players at the top can make sure that you don't get kicked off, and I see that as a very big risk.
Mm. Have you been able to attribute the attack?
We know who does it, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be honest,
Russians.
If you can stop it without impacting your operations, you don't really care.
Mm.
Because
No.
our network has 300 terabits of capacity. For us, 5, 6 terabits is just a fraction in the margin. So we stop it for our customers. We know who does it because we have the data, we see everything. Mm. But what are you going to do? Report it to the authorities. And then if they could do something about it, they would have already done something about it.
Yeah, they did, yeah. Okay, so credential theft, DDoS, of course. If an incident occurs, people registered in Splunk or any other SIEM that they have. So you from Splunk also have a very unique perspective on the kind of incidents people need to deal with. So according to that perspective, what are the most common threats in cybersecurity today?
Yeah, so we don't see our customers' data, that stays with them. But I talk to a lot of customers across Europe, Middle East and Africa. And what I hear is unfortunately quite boring. You know, it's still phishing, still malware, still the same old stuff. And it's quite depressing because we're still seeing a lack of multi-factor authentication, meaning that credential theft is incredibly successful and it allows you to get access into the network. It's boring, right? And most people want to hear you say AI is the threat and QR codes are the threat. And, Splunk was acquired by Cisco this year, and we have Thales, a huge research team, and their threat report every year, unfortunately, it says these things. It's ransomware, it's the basics that we are still being hit by. And it's really tough because how do you get the attention when that is the same kind of message? Still do the basics, still do your hygiene. But it's true, that's where organizations are. They're managing incredibly complex environments. It's incredibly hard, and the threat is changing. But I will say a bit about AI because I know everyone's excited about the threat from AI. And it's true that we see more GPT-generated phishing, but it's also true there was research from Harvard this year that says the click-through rate is not as high as people hype it up to be. So if you have a human expert crafting a phishing email, this experiment found that will get a 74% click-through rate. which is shockingly high for me. I don't know, I never click, right? Obviously, no one who's a security professional ever makes that mistake, but that's really high. GPT-generated phishing that had a 37% click-through rate. So still pretty high, but it's about half. But the scary thing for me is that when it's GPT-generated and then a human expert looks at it and makes tweaks, then you achieve a 62% rate. Now that is much higher. Okay, so what AI is allowing attackers to do is at the narrative layer, change the way that attacks are being launched with the efficacy, and not the efficacy, the efficiency. So it's a high click-through rate, but it's also just so much more voluminous. And so you've got so much more to defend against and so much more chance, therefore, of hitting someone.
So it might be a little bit more convincing, but that doesn't make the difference. It's more that the volume is much higher.
I mean, it's not more convincing. That's what the click-through rates show us. It's just you can generate so many more.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, so it's lowering the work rate.
Okay, but the AI as help for adversaries posing a cyber threat is overhyped, you would say.
I think it's overhyped because that's just at the narrative layer, to be clear. At the technical layer, why would I use an AI to find these intricate... No, I still have people who aren't patching their systems for 2 years. I would just go after that vulnerability. There is so much low-hanging fruit. Why would I invest in something that's incredibly sophisticated? I just don't need to as an attacker. And like all humans, attackers are lazy. They're going to do the easiest thing.
Yeah, you just get credentials from the dark web, so you don't need any generated...
Yeah, well, this goes to your point, yeah.
Erik Jan, would you tend to disagree if AI is a new weapon for cyber criminals or not?
Probably from the statistics at this moment, it is not a big thing, or it's seen as overhyped. But I think if you see the increasing amounts of sales of tools like Fraud GPT and Worm GPT, which they are using to do poisoning attacks to language models and all that kind of things, but also making those specific emails, I'm quite a bit worried about it. So I think we really need to talk about this with each other. Also, the whole disinformation as a service. It's really, really a big thing at this moment. So we should not focus only on traffic through the cloud, but we also should prepare for what's coming and what they are preparing yet. And I think that can be really a big threat.
Dirk-Jan, would you tend to disagree or not?
No, I fully agree. So on the boring stuff, it's the same with OWASP. The OWASP rules have been the same for 15 years, right? Yeah. Nothing has changed there either, which means we're still not doing our homework. I don't think it's because we as security professionals are lazy, it's because I think the problem is really hard. And now with AI, what's happening is AI is a workload tool, right? Helps you do workload. It also helps the attackers. So the amount of permutations of the email goes up, but also what we now see is polyformic workloads. So or attacks or these kind of things. So an attacker, where in the past they had the chance to maybe do 20, 30, 50, 100 attacks, they can now do 10,000. Just that acceleration of activity in itself is a risk.
Yes. Okay, well, later on we go to AI as defending, but to go to the framework from identify to protect. The first talk show, you weren't here, and it was in Dutch. Sorry for that, but you guys were listening. Is zero trust a very effective way to protect yourself from current threats?
Yeah, so zero trust is part of the solution, definitely. Zero trust focuses on the data stream from a user to an application. There are other data streams from machine to machine, from a customer to a website. These not necessarily fall under zero trust. So zero trust is definitely helping you where you have control over who's accessing your data and where your data is stored. But if you want to protect these other data streams, then you also need other protection mechanisms in place. Yeah.
You also been listening, convinced or not?
Yeah, I'm convinced. I would like to add to that one of the previous speakers was highlighting about communications and also let's say the wrong word, zero trust for a normal user, because we trust you. Yeah. So I think it's very important in cybersecurity and also in communications to start talking the same language to our employees instead of send all kinds of BS phishing mails. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So then we go.
Can I ask them? Because you just mentioned the click-through rate is 74% or something like that, and the emails are getting higher. How much does security training still help I mean, isn't it a lost cause to train people to not click on these things?
It's always the same stupid people doing it, right?
No, it's not
matter
always
what
the
you
same
do.
because you said security researchers never click on these links. I tend to disagree.
No, I know. I was joking. Yeah.
Even if if you aced all the trainings, you can still fall for these tricks because they're very difficult to detect.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. So I would say that, what a lot of organizations do, they can see an immediate dip in the rate, right? They do the training, and for the next month or week or whatever, everyone's hyper vigilant, and they say, look, I spent this much money, I gave this training, and the click-through rate dipped. I have improved security, right? It's not a long-term intervention. And the thing is, if you're defending against AI-generated phishing or phishing, it's the same thing. You should not just be relying on your users. First, stop that email getting to them, right? If it gets to them, they can recognize it, right? If they cannot recognize it and they click, minimize what that does, right? And in the case that something happens, many organizations still do this, unfortunately, you must not create a culture of fear. If I click on a link, I should feel like I will be rewarded for reporting that. I'm incentivized to do that. But honestly, who among us in our jobs today, you make a mistake and you go, oh, that was me. I'm that person. No, we're embarrassed. We're ashamed. We fear. And people fear they'll be sacked. They feel they'll be reprimanded. They feel that they'll be, shamed in front of the office. And so organizations that make it easy to report phishing are winning. And those that make it a positive thing to report phishing are winning. And that can be as simple as the fastest person to report a phish to me gets a gift card. How much does that cost you, a gift card? $50 or something. But let me tell you, it doesn't take long for word to get round that is a positive thing to report the phish. And the risk that you are exposed to is not how many people click the link. You just need one person to click that link, right? And there is some damage done. But it's the time that you do not know that has happened. And so instead of counting our click-through rates, we should actually be counting the speed with which you get the first phishing report, because that is what limits your risk exposure. I hope that answers your question, because everyone at some point will click. It's not a reasonable defense to have.
I find it a very difficult subject, phishing mails, because I'm really against all those phishing attacks and more
Tests,
research.
you mean?
Yeah, tests.
I don't think they work.
No, but there is many research, and I will share with CIONET after some papers, which are proving that it's working in the opposite.
The phishing test actually increases the number of clicks.
And that are quite a lot of numbers, and I tested it, I think, for 16 months with 30,000 people. So it's not N is 500. Yeah. So probably we need to redesign the thinking of phishing mails.
But what you just mentioned, I think, is very good. It used to be we run a test and we blame everybody, stop clicking on it. But the positive turn, you make sort of gamification. The first who finds it, everybody reports it. I mean, that might work. Was that in the research too, or not?
No, I think in the research was that the, let's say, the channel phishing mail, because I think it's about trusting people and rewarding people. Yes. In the basis, everybody wants to protect the company, but the tool is the doel. I always say in the Netherlands, tool is the goal. Yes. And that I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right thing to do to use gamification techniques to make people having more secure behavior. But we need to use other techniques.
Yes. Okay. Well, enough about protecting, because this session is on cyber resilience. So assume breach, we're under attack, and then it becomes to detection, of course. If you talk about detection, well, that's kind of the daily work of your companies. Where does AI come in there? For example, an anomaly detection that you can see. You have certain rules, and you see deviant behavior. And can you make your Splunk system self-taught, machine learning, as you will, to distinguish what is normal behavior and what is abnormal behavior?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of customers do this for many years, actually, and everyone's calling it AI now, but machine learning has been around for a long time. We've had customers use it for anomaly detection, to detect anomalous logons, all kinds of machine learning things actually embedded into our customers. We've seen predictive analytics. If you can see the way something is going, you can stop it before it falls over, remembering we're not just in security, an incident is an incident. But in the case of machine learning, absolutely, it's something that people use. However, there is a lot that you can do before you need to get to machine learning, because that is computationally expensive, and a lot can be achieved with basic rules, basic hygiene, automated response, statistical thresholding, risk-based alerting, which is something that we have in our products, where instead of having 10,000 alerts that you have to treat equally, you can weight them by the importance of the asset, by the importance of the user. As you mentioned, more and more attacks going after those high-value users with access to the system, financial access and things like that. So you're able to really triage your alerts a lot better. So that's something that we do with many customers. And then once you've achieved those things, you've really got a huge improvement in your security. And then we can look at machine learning and make sure that you are really picking out those insider threat cases, which are a bit more difficult to find, but machine learning will do that for you.
Yeah. Now, how do you use AI for Cloudflare?
It's quite similar, actually. We also have it already for like 10 years, calling it machine learning, because we see so much data. You can, based on the data, you can figure out stuff and decide things. What we do is we use machine learning or AI to detect patterns. And then we have a set of rules that we use to protect our platforms. Our customers can go to our platform, set their own firewall rules, set everything. But in front of that firewall that you configure yourself, there's a firewall of our own that you don't have any control over. And that's the one that we control. So the things that we learn with AI, we put that in our own managed rule sets. So that if we see something happening on the internet, then not every customer has to go into their own dashboard and fix that issue. We see it once and we just protect everybody in one go. And that's like a closed loop system. That is where AI is kind of the trigger, and then we put it in some basic rule just to make it sure that everybody can leverage it.
Okay, so if you look at the balance, AI is actually helping defenders, while it's not really helping the adversaries, because they don't need it.
I think that also helping the adversaries. It's helping both, right? It's a arms race at the moment.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
I think what we'll see is a step, right? It'll be a rocky journey, but currently, in my view, defenders have the upper hand, right? There is technology to be taken advantage of. The people who are using the technology are the ones that are going to win. And defenders are finding, they've got talent gaps in their SOC, they've got skills lacking, there's burnout. They can use a lot of this automation and then AI to fill those gaps.
And to make things first, they have regulation to stick to, which the adversaries don't.
Exactly. And I know that that's tough, but you do actually, we do see that the upper hand will be given to defenders initially. And now is the time to get your head start. That's truly what I think, until the attackers catch up, because they are already, the bar to entry is so low currently for cyber criminals to launch an attack. It's so low that they just don't need any more help, right? Like I said earlier, really, why would I go for something complex? I already have something that's working fantastically. Yeah. But we already see defenders using AI, machine learning to great effect in the SOCs, really multiplying their defender efforts, which is what they need.
And what you see is the defenders have to get it right every time, while the adversaries only have to get it right once. So it's not a level playing field.
Right, yeah. So in that sense, AI might help them, but yeah, they still don't need it.
Automation will help that, because that's a consistency of response. That's, a certain percentage of tickets should never be looked at by a person. That should just be dealt with because, oh, look, it's a phishing, it's a known vulnerability, it's a known tick, tick, tick. I'm just going to quarantine that device and I'll automatically remediate. That should really be the case. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of humans in the loop for this automation piece. And it would really free up a lot of talent in security operations centers to remove that.
Yeah. You mentioned the humans in the loop. Will they still be needed? If I would pose that the future of cybersecurity is just AI fighting AI, or machines fighting machines, and we look at it. Let's see what the room thinks of it. Who would say, well, the future of cybersecurity is just AI fighting AI? Who would agree? Well, there's one person, yes. Who would say, no, there will always be humans in the loop with defending and attacking? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most would agree. Okay.
I think you need to have some kind of intent.
Yeah. Right. Intent doesn't come from computers.
Well, they can have intent, but I don't think it's relevant for us as people.
Yes.
Yeah. They want to consume more resources. It'd be like the Matrix or something like that, and consume us as batteries.
Yeah.
That's I don't know.
Yeah. Computer took over. Yes. Okay. Perhaps the most important part for humans in the loop when it really goes wrong. 2 years ago, we also had some sessions on cyber crisis management. So, Erik Jan, you've been a crisis manager in healthcare for about 3 years during the COVID period.
Yeah.
So, incidents happen, they get handled in Splunk. Cloudflare takes care of protection and stuff, but there will become moments that we have to say, okay, we're so severely hacked, this is a crisis. In your experience, how do humans normally respond in a situation like that?
Yeah, the situation you are referring to is the COVID period. So when there was a news message that data was stolen at GGT, there was a need to mobilize a lot of people to manage this thing what was going on. But also in the same time, a lot of people were hired, different backgrounds, different locations, and what a lot of people forget probably is that the digital transformation, from my perspective, is done by COVID and not by the CTO, the CEO, whatever. And that was happening during COVID. So everybody was finding a way, how does Teams work? Zoom was hacked, whatever. So it was interesting. The most important thing, in my perspective, in that period is getting the best people around you, making the best teams, the right balance in how people behave, and also sending people at home who cannot manage stress. You really need to make the right decisions at the right time. It's a sort of hostage situation because you're getting a lot of news messages, press requests, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a combination between making the right communication strategy to the press, to the internal organization, scaling up security. In that moment of time, there wasn't a SOC.
No.
So we had to build up a SOC. And it was happening a lot. Also, fraud was happening, criminal situation. A lot of people got threatened in the vaccination locations. So actually in that role, I was also managing the anti-fraud and everything that was going on with websites with fake tests. You cannot imagine that it happened. Also, when it comes to attacks. So I think the key point is that the humans, by working together with each other and trusting each other, did a terrific job. And I think the most important element was adding the Z generation to the teams. So we had more than 50% G generation guys and girls in the teams.
Because they're much better at handling crises, they're much used to computers?
Yeah, first they have a lot of ideas. And they feel about 54% or so. I had a talk 2 days ago in Apeldoorn where they have a cooperation with a lot of students, and they feel as not seen in the companies, and they have such a lot of qualities. So what we actually did do is we had from the security part, from the communication part, from different departments, we formed the teams. Also to manage the communication around the internal and external part. And when everything happened, because I did it for about 3 years, and that was around 1.5 year crisis management, and the rest is learnings. We learned a lot. I think we implemented a lot. In that moment of time, I was also asked to do the data theft communication with the people in the Netherlands where the data was stolen of. So I also did that part. And that was a really cool part because as a health organization at that moment, you could also take care of explaining what it means if an email address gets stolen. And what it means if you go to have it been pawned, that you check where your information was stolen, and more importantly, how to protect. And that you need to update and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think that the updating stuff is still important. Sorry for the boring part, but it's updating long passwords.
It's always the same.
Please don't give a CEO access to a lot of data. Make life easy.
Yes.
And I think the human part. I'm still proud on what all those people did during the time. Yeah. And
Okay, so Kirsty, here we have Erik Jan in the boardroom as a crisis manager, and together with a whole group of youngsters trying to manage the crisis from human side. During a cyber crisis, so for example, big data loss, where does Splunk come in there? Is this the overview the IT department gets, or does it encompass more departments?
Yeah, so the thing with Splunk is it's a data platform, so you can open up access to any team that wants it. And we usually used across IT and security teams. So we say that an incident is an incident because in truth, when something goes down, when something gets stolen, you don't really care whose fault it is. You just want that fixed and you want the hole plugged, right, as quickly as possible. And so that platform Splunk allows you to do your investigation, to find the problem and to look back historically, how long has that been a problem for us? When did that initial access happen? It depends on how you've customized it because it's a very flexible tool. A lot of organizations will use MITRE ATT&CK to find the attack journey and map certain detections to it, and they will be able to do their investigation and also their remediation with the tool. So a lot of it will be automated. It depends how juicy the incident is, how long it takes to go. But you can have many analysts working on the same data, all got the same view, which really helps your collaboration. And it's hugely about the people part, and the technology allows your talent to do the best that they can do.
Yes, so it really helps in responding to crisis.
And may I add something to that? I think with all the tools and the dashboards and the systems, it's very important to educate people and also to educate what they have to do if there goes something wrong on the dashboards. Because a lot of people, they don't use all the techniques and it isn't configured for 100%. And that's also what I was referring to is the social media comparison. When there is a lot of shadow IT in an organization, and there is currently a lot of shadow AI, I see that as
shadow AI.
Yeah, that's really a big issue. It's really a big issue because when social media entered, all kind of companies were integrating social media tools, right? So who did they ask? Remember? The trainee.
Yeah.
Okay. Now with social media, there were also all kind of back channels. And now there is a lot of back tech.
Yeah.
And that's really a big issue because imagine if you ask a room full of people, I did it 2 days ago again, who is using generative AI? Yeah, we're using generative AI. I heard somebody saying, we are filtering because if we don't like it, we block it. Dream on. They have a lot of devices. They have their smartphones. They're implementing it.
Yeah.
And for example, a lot of people still don't know how Excel works, but a lot of AI tools they know. And if you look at LinkedIn, and there are Generation Z, they are explaining, you can use this tool and that tool to make another PowerPoint, very, very cool, and you put in all the data, and where's the data?
Yeah.
In the time of social media, I always say, look at all the terms and conditions. Did you look at the terms and conditions? There is a company, an AI company, because I think AI isn't an hype because it's not new, but the communication around AI is new. If you ask a company and ask the question yourself over here, do you already have a social media policy? Yes, I think you have a social media policy. Do you have an AI policy? And by the way, how many external people do you hire? Do you have separate contracts? What kind of AI, generative AI they may use? And what kind of penalties? And I'm not against innovation. I love innovation, but you need to set boundaries to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I'm quite worried, really worried about it at this moment, that we're still making the same mistake.
Yeah. So again, we come back to where we started. The biggest threat of AI is people being clumsy using it, and we need to protect themselves against it. Also, we concluded that AI is not that big a threat from adversaries, but we can use it to protect. And we also came to the very basic conclusion, it's also backed up by statistics. Cyber attacks are half lead credentials. In a quarter, it's not updated software, and the other quarter is like phishing. So it's very basic to protect yourself against that. But we're looking at the future, and as a big threat we have already identified. We're thinking of ways to protect ourselves, but we haven't responded yet, and it's post-quantum crypto. Who has never heard of post-quantum crypto? I need to explain or something like that? No? Okay. Well, long story short, a quantum computer it's already being built, and when it comes to say 4,000 qubits, right? It's strong enough to crack most of the asymmetric cryptography we're using. Factorization, solving puzzles, normal computers take ages, and the predictions are getting more near. Let's say within now in 5 or 10 years, we get to a large enough quantum computer, probably, which will crack all encryption we're now using to protect ourselves, well, most of it, and cryptopocalypse is near. That's not a very happy message. So, going to my guest, and of course I start with a mathematician because you know way more about it than I do. Is Splunk prepared for post-quantum crypto?
Yeah, so if I just address the threat firstly, I hear most people say 15 years or so is the boundary, but it has been 15 years for the last 30 years. So let's be realistic about the actual threat. And I'm not selling any quantum products here, right? So I'm not biased in that way. There is a chance that a quantum computer that can break cryptography, a classical cryptography, will not exist. There is just a chance, right? Moore's law does not apply. So this whole kind of hype, oh, we're on 40 qubits today, you double that in a year, you double that very quickly. It's not going to happen that way. So that's not to say it won't ever happen, right? And so preparedness is the key. And the thing is, if you're worried about quantum, I understand it can be quite jazzy, it's very exciting. Anything you need to do to prepare for the quantum threat is going to be very useful for your security practice anyway, right? Where is your data? How is it currently protected? How easily can you change that cryptography if you need to? And so instead, the principle of crypto agility is really what I would focus on. And of course, with Splunk, we're always responding to our customer needs. We're working with them on what they want to see.
With crypto agility, you mean that you can change your current crypto quite fast to new one?
Exactly. You can swap in and out.
No matter if it's post-quantum or any other crypto that's being cracked, because it will be cracked anyhow.
Yeah, so we saw this with SHA-1 hashing and how long it took people to roll off that into SHA-256 and SHA-3. We should really learn those lessons. Like, why was it so hard? And it's because people didn't know what data they had, who had access to this data. You know, it was hard to take the system offline, to upgrade the cryptography. And so we should really be looking at the lessons we learned there. And if you have a good asset inventory, you know what your data is, how it's currently protected and where it is, that's step one. And I think you'll find if you do that inventory, you have bigger problems than the quantum threat usually. You're like, oh, I didn't know that we had that, and I didn't know that it was protected that way. And so there's really a need to do your kind of foundations. And I think that if that's what gets you the budget and the incentives to say we must prepare for the quantum threat, then I do understand organizations taking that opportunity. But in general, it's just good security practice to be aware of your data, how it's currently protected, and be ready to move if you need to change how that data is protected.
Yeah, but we're talking about the migration trajectory, which might take long. So if it is the 10 years, we need to start now, right?
Yeah, so I think we should also be clear about what the threat is and what data is under threat. So if you are thinking on those timescales and the data that you need to protect for that long, and you are worried about a sophisticated adversary that is using the store and decrypt threat, where they are storing off your data, you think they will be large enough to have a quantum computer accessible, that they will be able to decrypt your data in that time, and it will be financially interesting for them to do that, then I understand that, right?
Yes.
So we really need to be careful that we're not saying every piece of data, you know, in 15 years' time, there's lots of data that I just won't care about, right? Very ephemeral data. And those systems should be migrated eventually, but deprioritized. And I think there's a real risk. The problem is so big that everyone thinks we need to move everything immediately. That's not the case. So let's try really to be critical about our prioritization. Yes. And that's the key.
Yeah, so you mentioned state secrets. They will be gathered now and decrypted later. So I did ask the Dutch intelligence services, are the Dutch state secrets already quantum-proof? And they said, yes, they are. And I said, well, you just print them out and put them in a vault or something? No, we can't go into that. They're approved.
They're ready.
Yeah, well, in the US, the president just stores them in his garage, so it doesn't matter if it's quantum-proof or not.
Well, this is the thing. Look at your real threat, right?
Yes.
Like, if you still have that, that's great. It's not that you shouldn't prepare for the threat, but be realistic about what your risk is.
Yes. So for Cloudflare, you also need to invest for the long term and be, well, post-quantum prepared. So how far are you guys on the migration?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're mostly the middle part, right? So we deal a lot with ephemeral data. So for us, we don't have anything on our network that will still be on our network 15 years from now. That's not the way we operate. Yet we have a massive impact on what's happening here because so much data is going through Cloudflare. We have a lot of ability to kind of experiment with that. So we've already been working with Google for 5 years to get post-quantum safe ciphers into the world. The NIST ciphers got ratified 2 months ago. We have them deployed. And about one in 5 traffic streams over Cloudflare is currently post-quantum safe. So this is one angle, is where we do the key management. Actually, there are two parts that we need to consider somewhere down the line. The other one is the signatures as well, right? So root signatures, HSMs, all these kind of things, they need to be quantum safe as well. I think that's not as a big issue today yet. It's something that we need to solve down the line. But if you look at the key management part, the technology exists, the standards exist now, the technology can be deployed, and we're a big proponent of that. So we try to get everybody onto post-quantum safe algorithms, even though the data might be ephemeral. It's just a good practice. And there's not that much overhead when it comes to just key exchange and key management and encryption, because we kind of do it anyway.
Yeah, you actually see now sort of acceleration, right? You know, just a couple of years ago, it was just something, well, the mathematicians proved it can solve, you know. The physicians started to build. And now I see at all these post-quantum crypto migration events, see a lot of, governmental people, a lot more suits and ties show up. And in the Netherlands, we even have a migration trajectory. Sounds very promising, but it's something everybody needs to go along with, right? Because the hardware needs to be adapted. Well, they're working on that. We got now have the standards, but so many systems will need to be changed in the meantime. So where will things go wrong first in the coming 10 years if the quantum computer is ready for it? What would your hunch be? Where do we need to be aware of what will break first?
My hope is actually that as least amount of possible of people are aware. So we introduce ciphers quite often, and we just upgrade OpenSSL once in a while, and you have new ciphers, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the way that the world should work. Somewhere down the line, OpenSSL should have these new post-quantum safe ciphers, and the next time you update your server or your workstation, you're post-quantum safe, because if you have to do something as a user, I think we kind of lost the plot here.
So it might end up like the Millennium Bug, you know? Everybody was working very hard, and in the end said, oh, it was just a hoax. No, we've just been working very hard to solve it. Yeah.
Well, the difference will be where organizations have their proprietary software that they still need to upgrade. But yeah, I completely agree. Things like the internet, for the average user, your banking apps, that should just be upgraded for you. Definitely don't decide as a user, you know what, I'm going to do my own cryptography. Do not do that. Okay, that would be terrible. Yeah. But yeah, I think where you are an organization with complex systems, that maybe, the thing is, if it's proprietary, in 10 years' time, will you still be using that system? That's your first question, right? So plan to migrate what you need to. But yeah, I think people are excited now because the algorithms and the primitives have been standardized. Yeah. That is not the same as the internet protocols being standardized. Those algorithms are different sizes, you know, so you need different key sizes to be accommodated for. There's issues with fragmentation, but this is all stuff that users should not have to worry about, right? This is very smart engineers working on this in the background so that it will just arrive. You will just have quantum-proof internet. That will be fabulous. But you shouldn't have to worry about it as a user.
Cool. Yeah. Before we round up,
it's an interesting discussion, but what I always find very interesting too is, probably I'm a sort of boomer, but you know, we have a huge security issue on, I don't know if you know the programmer language COBOL.
Oh yes, yes.
You know,
a lot of banks.
And we are talking about all these kind of nice things, and I'm following the quantum computing and I understand it. But you know, we have in the Netherlands, especially in the Netherlands, but I think worldwide, a huge issue of COBOL programmers. And the time is ticking, so everybody is talking about quantum computing. But in 5 years, all the knowledge is gone. You know?
Yeah, the people using COBOL.
That will be a huge issue.
Yes. We need AI writing COBOL.
That kind of things. But did you see any research about it? I didn't see it.
I don't know.
We need COBOL GPT.
Something there.
Within the universities in the US, they're already teaching COBOL again. Because of that. And it's even more interesting is, we're talking about patching as well. Do you know that one of the biggest companies in the world, of most important, NASA, did a patch after 42 years?
Yeah, but COBOL is a solution. COBOL is
satellite.
COBOL is a solution for a lot of things, you know.
It is. All the banking, financial industry.
Okay, well, where did that come from? And anybody else? last remark before you finish up. We go to Vincent. Yes. Oh.
Thank you. So I work in MSSP SOC, and today one of our clients organized a Purple Team exercise.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah, so they hired a third-party red team, so it was an exciting day for us today. There's still, it's 6:05, so 5 minutes ago they stopped the exercise. And what we found today is that when the adversaries used off-the-shelf tooling, we were very capable to detect the attacks. However, when they used custom build tooling, it was quite difficult for us to detect. And what I am afraid of is that the adversaries now have to be very advanced to create this custom tooling. But with Gen AI, I'm afraid that this threshold of building custom tooling will be much lower. So for us as a SOC, it will be much more difficult to detect attacks in the future.
Okay. So there is a threat from AI. Yes, finally we got one. Any last remarks? Oh, yes.
Yeah, actually almost the same question, because we're talking about machine learning, deep learning, but I don't see any progress on reinforcement learning. And I see that as a problem. So most things we were busy now is based on historical data, but the reinforcement learning is not using historical data.
If I may, actually, sorry, yeah, because we say this to our customers when they want to implement machine learning, that you need to avoid a kind of ever-closing circle, right, and spiraling inwards. And so one of our biggest successes has been with a European luxury car manufacturer. And the reason that works is because the production line, you constantly have a feedback loop. Because when the car arrives at the end of the production line, you say if it was good or bad, and you can score it, and that goes back into your processes, right, for manufacturing. So it's really important that we continue getting the fresh data. That's what Splunk does, right? We handle data. So we always advise on managing that data lifecycle properly, because I agree with you. We're at risk of just becoming very good at detecting very few things and spiraling inwards.
Okay.
Thank you for that remark. For the very last question, we go to Cole, because we started with you, we'll finish with you.
I'm in need for a clear definition on what is AI and what is machine learning, because we talk a lot about machine learning, but it's not AI to me. I think Erik Jan agrees.
I agree.
So I think it's a bit blurred discussion.
Okay, well, according to Splunk, AI is the ability of computer software to mimic human reasoning and behavior, right?
I can also
you have
say
a better metaphor for that.
we have a lovely graphic on our website of Russian dolls,
Yes.
Dolls that sit within each other. And so the smallest one is generative AI, and then around that you have deep learning, and then around that you have machine learning, and the biggest Russian doll is AI. So I think that really helps you. They're subsets of each other. So people talk about AI, they're talking about machine learning sometimes, and that's why we're very careful with what we say AI is. But yes, we've been doing machine learning for a very long time. Generative AI, lots of people say AI, and they do just mean a large language model. Yeah, I think there's not a lot of clarity.
I think a lot of tooling which is automation is now called also AI. I think that's where it's coming from, and that's how also I think there is a need to speak the same language.
Yeah, well, so automation, we quickly say that's machine doing.
Yeah.
That's not machine learning.
Exactly.
You tell the machine what to do and it does it. That's automation.
AI is more a marketing term today than a technical term, right? So if you needed to market something and you want it to be up again, you put AI on it. And now we're getting back to what is actually what.
True.
Now we need to put it back into a box.
True.
Because the marketing people took it and they ran with it, right? So, and that's the world we currently live in.
That's the reason why I was referring to a communication AI hype, not an AI hype. It's a communication hype.
Okay, well, that being said, time's up. We've been talking about cyber resilience, how you can use AI to attack, well, mostly also to defend yourself. We also came to the conclusion that, well, if you're under attack, it's mostly still lost passwords, phishing, and outdated software. So be prepared to cope with those attacks using Splunk and also Cloudflare to protect yourself. Also, be ready for post-quantum and learn COBOL. Yeah, can I summarize it like that? Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much. See you next year.